On 3G, your table stays empty for over 3 seconds. Users think the page is broken. V0's DataTable has no loading skeleton. Let's break down V0 versus Shadcn UI Masterclass, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. V0 is Vercel's AI tool that generates React components from natural language. It uses Shadcn/UI primitives and Tailwind. But the output is a starting point. You must add loading states, error handling, and accessibility before it's production ready. Our first component is a sortable, filterable data table. It uses TanStack table for sorting and filtering, and we explicitly handle loading, empty, and error states. Here's the full production data table component. Notice we define the columns with sorting and formatting, and we import skeleton, card, and other UI primitives for our states. The table skeleton component renders 5 rows of skeleton placeholders. This prevents layout shift and tells the user something is happening. This skeleton component mirrors the table's header and body structure. Each cell uses the skeleton component from Shadcn/UI with appropriate widths. We also handle empty and error states. Empty state shows a message and a clear filters button. Error state shows a retry button. Both use the card component for visual consistency. Both components accept callbacks. OnReset clears filters, OnRetry triggers a refetch. They're simple but critical for good UX. The main data table component uses a series of early returns. If loading, show skeleton. If error, show error state. If empty data, show empty state. Otherwise, render the full table with search and sorting. Notice the early returns: loading, error, empty. The debounced filter uses useDebounce to avoid excessive filtering. The table includes aria-sort attributes for accessibility. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The data table component renders immediately with empty data because the API call hasn't completed. Users on slow networks see a blank table and think the page is broken, leading to repeated refreshes and support tickets. The data table rendered synchronously without checking an async loading state, causing an empty T-body on slow connections. The fix adds a conditional skeleton that displays while isLoading is true. The fix is simple. Pass an isLoading prop and return the skeleton component when true. This tells the user something is happening, and when data arrives, the table appears seamlessly. This is the mistake, rendering the table component before data is available. The table appears empty, and users perceive a broken page. Without debounce, every keystroke triggers a filter re-render. On large datasets, this causes noticeable lag. Use useDebounce to limit updates. Screen readers need aria-sort to announce the sort direction. Without it, users relying on assistive technology can't navigate the table effectively. The article uses at TanStack/ReactTable V8. If your project has V7, the API differs. GetCoreModel is used stable instance, and FlexRender is not used. Always check your installed version before copying code. The article mentions debounced filters, but doesn't show the import. Use useDebounce to avoid excessive re-renders. Here's the correct import and usage pattern. The article's data table uses client-side sorting filtering, which works for small datasets. For large datasets, you must implement server-side pagination with manual pagination and page count from TanStack table. V0 never generates this. To debug loading state issues, throttle your network to slow 3G in DevTools. Then, check if the skeleton appears. Also log the isLoading prop to verify it's being passed correctly. Let's run through some common interview questions. How would you handle loading states in a Shadcn/UI data table? Gate rendering with isLoading prop show skeleton component. What's the difference between empty and loading states? Loading shows skeleton, empty shows a message with CTA. Why use debounce on search filter? Prevents excessive re-renders and improves performance on large datasets. And a few frequently asked questions. Can I use this data table with server-side pagination? Yes, but you need to adjust the TanStack table configuration. Does V0 generate loading states? No, V0 only generates the happy path. You must add them. What if I don't use TanStack table? You can still use the skeleton and state pattern with any table library. Let's recap the key takeaways. Always add loading, empty, and error states to data tables. Gate data table rendering with isLoading prop. Use debounced filters for performance. Add aria-sort for accessible sorting. Ready to go deeper? Up next, introduction to JavaScript, then variables in JavaScript, then data types in JavaScript, and operators in JavaScript. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.